All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Adam Berezin from MSDW. Thanks so much for joining us for today's session on 50 tips in 50 minutes for Dynamics 365 Customer Insights, presented by our good friends at Coffee and Done. So before we get started, I just want to mention a couple of things. First, if you have any questions during the session, please feel free to type them into the chat box, and one of our presenters will get back to you via email after the session ends. Second, we are recording the session, and we'll have the video posted to MSDW within the next day or so. So without further delay, Caroline, I am going to turn over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. So welcome, everybody. Just before we begin, for those of you that are not as familiar with Coffee and Done, we are a 12+ year partner of Microsoft dealing with all things within the customer engagement suite. And while we are definitely, I would say, anchored in the marketing and customer insights platform, our expertise does span across the entire CE suite. So sales, service, contact center, we do it all. But today we're definitely going to be diving in pretty deep on customer insights. Just to give you a little intro on your speakers, I will go first. Hi, everyone. My name is Caroline Faraday. I'm a consulting manager here at Coffee and Done. I've been with our team for about 7.5 years. And what I do day to day is focus on customer insights implementations from end to end. So all the way through from discovery to deployment. That's kind of where I live on a daily basis. And so I'm very excited to share all of our tips and areas of expertise when it comes to customer insights. And I will hand it over to Jackie.
Awesome. Thank you, Caroline. I am Jackie Hunt. I'm a senior solution consultant with Coffee and Done, and I've been with Coffee and Done for about 4 years. Similar to Caroline, I consult our clients in their implementation of D365 customer insights journeys and sometimes sales, and also sometimes help them improve the setup that they may already have in the Dynamics suite. And definitely excited to help share what we've learned along the way.
Awesome. So now let's get into the tips. So just to give you a little bit of idea of what we're going to be sharing tips on in the features area, really focused on CIJ, so email, segments, triggers, forms, journeys, consent, and then security related to customer insights. And then we're going to give you a little roadmap of what is to come related to CIJ, and then also on the customer insights side as well. So without further ado, let's begin. So first area of emails, number one, say yes to, I would say, some Copilot. So one of the features areas within emails with Copilot is called content ideas. And so this is where marketers can instantly generate or rewrite email content. Just you need to provide it a prompt, and then Copilot suggests some subject lines, paragraphs, or call to actions. And it really I would say, allows marketers to overcome those creative roadblocks around messaging and ensures that you're kind of getting fresh ideas. I would say use this as a starting point for sure. Obviously, if you are a marketer within your specific brand, you know your voice better than anyone. But again, it can assist with those creative roadblocks. Number two, maximize your brand profile. So brand profiles really allow you to set predefined color palettes, logos, sender details, social links for your different brands and business units. And this really ensures consistency across your campaigns. One of the areas that we like to customize within brand profiles is adding a copyright year field that auto updates essentially every January 1st. This allows marketers to not have to worry about setting a calendar reminder saying, oh, go update all of my email footers that have copyright year for 2025 and update them to 2026. You can automatically kind of dynamically populate the year within all of your emails or email templates. So again, just one thing to take off of your list if you're a marketer. Number three, more hops, more data, use it. So you have the ability to go 8 hops away from either the contact or lead profiles when you are personalizing your emails. So I would say that's one of the beauties of the CIJ Customer Insights Journeys apps. since you are all the data lives within Dataverse, you can utilize that to further personalize your email communication. So again, you can customize and really personalize so you're connecting with your customers on a one-to-one personal level. So use the data. And going along with that, again, as I mentioned, utilizing all of that data, you are able to, I would say, get hyper-personal with one of the features, which is conditional content. Conditional content allows you, again, to craft those conditions for your specific audiences, and you can actually personalize and customize entire sections based off of those conditions. So say, for specific job titles that I have or I'm interacting with, I want to show different hero images. I can easily do that within conditional content. And then it even allows you to have a default option if any of your audience doesn't meet the criteria that you're setting up within your condition. So again, just being able to connect with your audiences on that one-to-one level with conditional content is really, really cool. Number 5, edit emails in live journeys. So once your emails go live, say that you see a typo, or maybe you realize that you accidentally put in a wrong link. Have no fear. If this is an ongoing journey, instead of having to stop the journey and then re-execute the campaign, you have the ability to edit those live emails. I would say just be cognizant of what you're updating. Wouldn't say go and take out the entire HTML and put in new, but if you're trying to make a small tweak to it, you can definitely do that within the email designer and make those updates. Moving right along, we will do 6 and 7. So leverage advanced analytics. So within advanced analytics, going back over here, within your emails, once they go live, Dynamics will generate quite a few insights for your team. These will be, you can see them on a granular level, or if you want to see them aggregated, it definitely provides the ability to drill in deeper. You'll see delivery trends. You'll see that there's access to a heat map, so you can see where your communications are really getting the biggest traction, and you can even further look at those and do it by device type. So if you're wanting to look and see how you can better optimize your email communications, it will give you an output of the email clients that your customers are using and the device types that they're using as well. Okay. Number 7, download links are available. So if you are sending any white papers, or if you have content download communications where you're needing to send and serve up links where your audience would actually have the ability to download documents, there is a feature within the email designer that allows you just to do that. Essentially, you can upload those assets and those documents to your asset library, and then within the call to action buttons, or if you need a hyperlink, there's a download link option where you can link those documents that you need your customers to access. Number 8, take advantage of themes and custom fonts uploads. Themes and custom fonts are really great so that you know that you're maintaining that brand consistency, no matter if I'm creating an email or if Jackie's on my team, she's creating an email. And this allows you to kind of streamline your efforts. So if you are maintaining those brand guidelines and consistency, you can essentially put all of those attributes and those colors and fonts into your emails. And then whenever you're adding new sections or adding any new call to action, those themes are going to be getting applied to your email. So I would say, I guess it just streamlines the email creation process, where you don't even have to think of needing to go update the copy or those colors. They're just going to be set, predefined for you. Sorry, I'm getting click happy. The last one on emails that I wanted to note is that you have the ability for more than one contact point for data source. So what that means is that when you're sending out email communications to your customers, you can send out utilizing more than one email address. So one of the use cases that I like to use is that I have a customer that their primary email address is used for their customer's business email, but they also have a need to communicate with them on their personal email as well. They have an alumni audience that they want to target and send to that specific email address. Within Customer Insights Journeys, that is just a setting within the audience configuration side that you can connect that other email field, and then you can easily use that email field whenever you're generating your customer journeys. So you're not limited to just one email field within your customer database. You can use multiple. I think it's up to 3. And now I will pass it over to Jackie to discuss segments and triggers.
Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about segments and triggers a little bit. Tip number 10 here, choose your fighter. We mean trigger. So sometimes in certain cases, segments definitely make sense to use for your journeys, but triggers in Dynamics are really a great way to target your customers in real time. And that can be based off of customer data being created, customer data being updated, or even your customers' interactions with your marketing materials. So for example, if your customer fills out a marketing form on your website and you want to send them a follow-up email just to say thank you in real time, triggers are a really great way to do that. You can even use custom triggers. So a good example for using a custom trigger is if you have one journey and you include a custom trigger at the end of that journey, you can actually take that customer that hits that custom trigger and daisy chain them directly into journey number 2. So again, triggers are really a great way to target your audience in real time at a point that really makes sense based off of their actions or who they are. Number 11, not seeing your related table, there is a sync for that. So if you want to create a segment that uses condition logic and data that doesn't live directly on the contact or the lead table, but may live on a related table, you're going to want to make sure that any tables in between the 2 tables, in between that relationship, are added to the segmentation tool or are synced up for use. And again, just as a reminder, as you're traversing tables to create your segment condition logic, you do have the ability to hop a maximum of 8 times from table to table. But again, it's really just a great way to leverage that data that lives on all different Dataverse tables in the system to make sure you're getting the right audience. Number 12, pick a date, any date. So within the segment builder, you do have the ability to create conditions on dates that are an exact date, a relative date, or a partial date. So just to give you a little example of that, an exact date is just that. So maybe you want to pull an audience of lead records that were created on December 25th of 2024. So you can use exact dates to pull those audience members. If you want to use a relative date, maybe you want to pull lead records that were created 1 week before today. So that's going to be relative to whatever date that it is. And finally, we have that partial date. So let's say you want to pull lead records that were created on the 15th day of any month of any year. You can use those partial dates to pull those types of leads or contacts as well. So we always suggest that users are pretty well versed in the different settings that can be used for your date conditions, just to make sure that you're getting as creative and as targeted as possible for pulling your audience members. All right, make your segment edits before using it in journeys. So once a journey is set live in Dynamics, users no longer have the ability to go back and make edits or changes to the segment that's being used. So we definitely always want to recommend that you're very mindful about how you're setting up the condition logic in your segments, especially for journeys that are going to be live for an extended period of time, or have multiple touch points, or customers are going to be filtering in and out of that segment or that journey. You're going to want to think down the road and think ahead a little bit, just to make sure you're thinking of every scenario and getting that segment logic right the first time before you set that journey live. All right, give natural language a try. So though the natural language tool does still have a few strides to make in Dynamics, it can be useful when you're trying to create a simple query for your segment. one thing to think about is that the more complex that your organization's data structure is, the less likely the natural language tool is probably going to nail what you're looking to include in your segment the first time. But again, we always suggest that you give it a shot, because even if it doesn't get it perfect, it's going to give you a great starting point for your segment conditions. And of course, once that segment is created, once that draft is spun up by the natural language tool, you can always go back and make edits or changes just to make sure that you get exactly who you're looking for. But it doesn't hurt to give it a try.
Okay, this next one. So export larger segments up to 750,000. So if you have the need, once your segment is live and you want to see or have a spit out of the context that are associated to that, you can definitely do that. There is the export option within the segment designer. I would say a call out here is that this privilege is set up differently than if you have export privileges natively within Dynamics. So that's just something to be aware of. It's a customization on the CIJ side. But here you have the ability to, I would say Microsoft has created a workaround if you have segments that are larger than the 100,000 row limit. And it will essentially spit out multiple Excel spreadsheet files for your audiences that met the segment. So I will say another call out here is that the export only allows and gives you 4 columns. Those columns are set on the Microsoft side. You can't add additional columns. So if I wanted to add in the account lookup, I unfortunately can't do that. But if you need it, or if you're needing to drill down further and deeper into your segment audiences, they did provide you with the export functionality.
All right, in between operators, do not move. So users actually have the ability to add subgroups to groups that they're creating within their segment. When you are adding conditions as a subgroup, the operator between the conditions is always going to be and. And what that means is that a customer needs to qualify for both of those conditions in order to qualify for that group entirely. So if you're noticing that you can't toggle that operator to or, what you're going to want to do is separate out your conditions in 2 different groups. But it's a great way to really target your audience based on group by adding those additional conditions and getting a little bit more specific with it.
Yeah. One of the other things I would add here is that if you have your different groups and you need to move a group up or ahead, those in between operators between your groups don't move. So that is definitely a gotcha that I have had, where I had a but not clause, and then when I moved it up to be the second line, it said like and is. So it would have messed up my segment entirely. So that's just a huge gotcha. If you're moving around your bigger groups around the segment designer, you're going to have to make that update a second time.
Definitely. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, number 17, no estimation with behavioral data. So users are always going to see that estimate members feature in the segment builder. There is a little bit of a gotcha with this feature where if there are behavioral conditions included within the segmentation logic, that estimate membership feature is not actually going to serve back any membership information or segment numbers. So if you're selecting that feature and it's not giving you any membership or numbers, take a second look at your segment logic and notice that if you do have any behavioral conditions in there, because that is why you're not getting any membership back.
Yeah.
Okay, so we want to talk about refresh road rules a little bit. So essentially, I want to touch on the refresh cadence for segment membership based off of the different type of segment that we're working with. So the first type of segment that I want to talk about is a segment that is not being used in a customer journey currently. This type of segment is going to refresh every 30 minutes for the first 24 hours after you create that segment. After the first 24 hours, it's going to refresh its membership once every 24 hours. The second type of segment is a segment that's being actively used in a journey currently, but it does not include any interaction filters. So that's the important thing to remember. This type of segment, it's going to refresh its membership every 30 minutes. The next type of segment is a segment that's being actively used in a journey, but does actually include some of those interaction conditions within it. This type of segment is going to refresh every 60 minutes. And the last type of segment that I want to mention is a segment that was previously used in an active journey, but is no longer being used in a journey currently. The cadence for this segment membership refresh is going to come back to once every 24 hours. Okay, we have a little bit of a bonus tip here. Build journeys with more than one segment. So today in Dynamics, when users are creating a real-time journey, they actually have the option to pull in multiple audience segments to create their starting audience. If you do so, it is important to remember that essentially the operator between these different segments that are being used as your initial audience is an OR. So what that means is that a customer needs to qualify for at least one of the segments being used in the audience membership in order to flow into your journey. So again, don't think that a customer needs to qualify for all conditions across all segments being used. They just have to qualify for one of them to enter your journey.
And I would say another thing to note here is that, as Jackie mentioned, it does the OR operator, but it also does the deduping if your contacts are in more than one segment by contact GUID, which is just worth noting if you have a messier database than others and you have duplicate contacts, the segment reentry isn't going to solve for that. If they have different contact GUIDs, they could flow in twice, even though that they have the same email. Okay, so thanks, Jackie. So now on to forms. So our first form tip is, should it be a lead? Should it be a contact? Maybe both or neither. I would say within the forms designer, Microsoft definitely allows a lot of flexibility depending on your business need of what type of record you're wanting to generate. So if you're only wanting to generate leads for certain campaigns, or maybe you need to generate both, if you have taken the approach that a contact is the person and a lead is the expression of interest, Microsoft allows you to do that in, I would say, an easy way. Another, I would say, area that we have found useful is that you can actually even create forms where you are not updating or creating Dataverse records. So one of our clients had a use case that they were wanting to utilize the Dataverse fields to capture information for a customer. But the specific use case is that they needed this information to go to an events team, and they did not want to house it or create unnecessary Dataverse contact and lead records in their Dataverse. And so what they were able to do is that there is a feature within the form area where it essentially allows you to use fields like first name and last name on the contact or lead entity. But whenever a form submission comes through, it's not going to create those records, and it's not going to update if an existing customer were to submit that form. And so what we were able to use that is essentially use that form submission data and then connect it to Power Automate to send a notification to that specific events team. But I would say it just, again, offers a lot of flexibility in the area of forms with what Microsoft has done. The next one is use hidden fields to auto set specific values. So within the forms designer, you can use your Dataverse fields, and then you can actually, there is a setting to, if you need to hide a field. One of the, I would say, main things that we do utilize this for is for UTM campaign fields. And if we need to just auto set a specific form to a campaign so that the form submissions are getting stamped to that appropriate campaign. And so this just allows for you to capture additional information. Say if you even needed to have a specific lead stage set for some of your forms, you can auto set those values and then hide them so the customer doesn't know that you're doing this kind of sneakily. And again, that once those submissions are coming through, all of that data is going to be available to you within those form submissions. So the next one, see changes in real time with D365 Market No Cache. So whenever you are making updates to your forms, once they are live, it takes Microsoft up to 10 minutes to reflect those changes, no matter if you're seeing the form on the website or seeing them within a Dynamics 365 generated page. So if you're like us at Coffee and Done, where we do not have a lot of extra time available to be waiting on those changes to make sure that our updates are being reflected, one workaround that we have seen is that if you apply the D365 Market No Cache to your URL, it will kind of automatically reset the form to reflect those changes. So again, this is something that we use because, again, we don't have a lot of extra time on our hands and we want to see those changes in real time. The next one here is related to speed up styling with inherent. So for, I would say the majority of our customers, when we are building out forms for them, they are hosting these forms on their website. Sure, you know, websites have their own set of styles and guidelines that they're setting up on their website, and those styles are all built within the website itself. Instead of having to add all of those styles to the form HTML to make sure that they're kind of mirroring the same look and feel, what we have done is for within the styles area in the HTML, we just add the inherent tag. And so when these forms are getting embedded or hosted on the website, they're going to take over the styles, whatever styles are set on the website. So again, just maintains that brand consistency with all of your assets. And I would say it saves time. One of our clients is actually going through a rebrand right now and for their website. And because we have done this, they don't have to worry about now they've made the website rebrand with all the styles and changes. Now I have to go make those updates to the forms. Those forms are going to reflect those new styles. So just really a really cool thing that we do for clients. The next one we have here is save time with pre-fill. So pre-fill is great if you are needing to serve up existing data for your clients, so they just can update any new fields or maybe populate or make updates to existing data that you have on them. This can be on a per field basis. So some columns may not warrant that you want to pre-fill. I would say like the comments field, maybe you don't want to show what they last submitted, but like first name, last name, email, maybe you want to auto set that so that as a customer, I don't have to continuously update those fields. So it does work on the email link tracking. If it takes them to another page, all of those will be auto-populated. I would say a gotcha here is that it does account for pre-fill tracking related to your consent. So make sure that you have that set up. Okay. The next one is templatize your form. So form templates really allow you to set branded, compliant, and pre-configured layouts for your teams. And it allows you to do it in a way where your those form templates don't necessarily get overridden because you can lock it down since it's its own table. So again, they allow marketers to quickly create forms that are needed if you have specific layouts or specific fields that you're using, but it also allows you to lock down these assets so that you can ensure nobody is making unnecessary updates to these assets themselves. So maybe it should only be for super users or your admins instead of all of the marketers that have access to the forms table itself. So this next one, custom one-time question, no problem. So if you are in the need to add specific fields that maybe you don't want to necessarily live on data first, so the contact or lead, maybe it's just a one-time campaign and you need an additional question, you need to ask an additional question, or maybe it's for an event. You definitely have the ability to do that. And I would say it's a pretty easy interface to create these fields. You can see here the types of unmapped fields that you have available to you. You can just drag and drop them and then make the updates for whatever the field attribute should be. And the cool thing here for these unmapped fields is that you will have access when your customers submit them. You'll have access to those form submission records, again, without having to update the connected contact and lead records. So 26, use custom sections when you customize the form's entity form. So here you can see we have made changes to the entity form itself to account for creating another lead and a campaign. And so with these changes, you need to ensure that you are adding them to your own specific section. Microsoft within the form designer itself on the entity like backend side provides a section, but if you add your changes and customizations there, they have the ability to override, so clear out any of the customizations that you've made to this entity form when a release happens. That can create quite a risk for our clients. So what we ask you to do is add them into your own separate section. So it kind of saves you from, if a release happens, it's not going to overwrite your customizations. They'll still be there after that push. And 27, enhance relationship with contact lead entities. So whenever a form submission comes in, if you are creating a contact or a contact and lead, it is going to show you that relationship within the form submission table. That has not always been the case. It used to only show you the specific GUID. So if you wanted to traverse from the form submission record in Customer Insights Journeys to the connected lead that created it or the connected contact, it was quite cumbersome to do that. If you wanted to see those records in the list view of the form submission, it was just very hard to do. Microsoft acknowledged that relationship should exist. And so within the spring release, they kind of added these relationships. And so that not only shows visibly, it's easier to kind of connect the dots to the contact and lead and go traverse to those records. But if you are if you have any Power Automate flows or other automation that are connected to your form submissions, it makes it easier to traverse to those entities. You used to have to go, I would say, multiple hops to get to the contact and lead and find them. And now, since there is that direct relationship tied to the form submission table, it makes it a lot easier for you to do that. And then this next one, ignore empty values. So within your forms, you have the ability to say for your non-required fields, you have the ability to say if you want to ignore the empty values or if you want to have those values cleared out. And what I mean by that is if you submit a form, if this setting is not turned on, what essentially happens if those unrequired fields, say job title is not a required field on your form, if somebody goes and submits that form, if there's data in Dataverse still, it will clear out that value. So say my name's Caroline Faraday, I'm submitting the form. I do not submit my job title as consulting manager. And then even though in Dataverse it says consulting manager, whenever I go and submit that form, it's going to clear out consulting manager in Dataverse. A lot of our clients do not want this. So we urge you to turn this setting on. So it says ignore empty values. And it is on a per form basis. Unfortunately, right now it's not on a per field basis. So that's just another gotcha. Now I'll hand it over to Jackie to discuss journeys.
All right, thank you, Caroline. So jumping into journeys, one of the first tips that we want to talk about is avoiding consumer fatigue with quiet time and frequency capping. So if your outreach strategy consists of being a bit more mindful and thoughtful about whether or not your customers do or do not want to be hearing from you during certain days or a certain amount of times per day or per week, we suggest that you start employing frequency capping. So this can actually be used to control how many messages, and this is across all channels, that an individual customer can receive either on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, so that you're not hitting them too many times and they don't start to get fatigued with how many messages you're sending them. The next, quiet times. So quiet times can actually keep your messages from being sent on certain days of the week, certain hours during the day, so early mornings. Maybe you don't want to be sending messages on weekends or during certain holidays. You can actually employ quiet times in order to keep your messages from going out to your consumers during these times. And it's also cool to note that today, when you employ quiet times, you can actually set them up so that they are respecting an individual customer's time zone. So it really ensures that marketers are actually being accurate with their quiet times on an individual customer basis. So again, quiet times, frequency capping, two great tools to use in order to ensure that your communication is as mindful as it can possibly be.
Yeah, I would say on the quiet time side, if you're really interested in the time zone, respecting time zone, it is a little bit of extra configuration on the front end side to make sure that those time zones are getting stamped to your contact and leads. But definitely, I would say it's an amazing feature if you send out communications globally or even nationally.
Exactly. Okay, number 30, dig into journey goals and exit criteria. So the goals feature in your journeys is a great way to really determine exactly what actions a customer needs to take in order to consider that customer to have met the goal of your journey. So a great example would be if you're setting up a journey and your goal is to get customers to register for an event that you're holding in the future, you can actually set those goals directly in the journey. And you can also broaden the goals within the journey itself to consider whether or not the overarching journey has met its goal. So for example, if your overall goal is to get 150 of your customers to register for your event, you can even add those goal details in there as well, just to really determine whether or not the journey that you set up did in fact meet the goal. I do want to talk a little bit about exit criteria. So exit criteria is a great way to remove individuals who have met the goal of your journey from that journey entirely. So this is going to keep them from flowing through the rest of the journey. It's going to keep them from being sent any, follow-up emails that are really no longer applicable to them. So for example, if a customer did in fact register for your event, you could use that exit criteria to yank them right out of that journey, so that you're not sending them any sort of like redundant follow-up emails asking them to register for an event that they've already registered for. All right, 360 view of interactions on the timeline. So today there is a comprehensive snapshot of marketing interactions on the contact timeline, readily available for review. These types of interactions can include form visits, whether someone has submitted a form, email clicks, email opens, whether an email has been blocked from being delivered to one of your customers. And it is good to note that by actually enabling the timeline integration and adding the customer insights connector to the contact and account timelines, these types of interactions can actually be fed up into the timeline from CIJ and CID in the Sales Hub application as well. So it's minor updates like this that it's actually going to foster collaboration between your marketing users and your sales users. It's going to give your sales users a little bit more insight into exactly what's going on with their customers as far as those interactions go. Okay, number 32, leverage conditions beyond email. So the Journey Builder today actually allows marketers to create a tailored experience for their customers by using the branching option within the Journey Builder. So based on the journey design, users can actually leverage different attributes on the customer data in order to create a different path for that type of customer. And they can also leverage segments and triggers in order to send customers down different paths as well. So for example, you can use a trigger that looks at whether or not a customer has submitted a marketing form within a designated period of time. You can send them down one path, and you can send customers who haven't filled out your marketing form down an entirely different path. So really just kind of making sure you're ensuring that you're getting the right messaging to the right customers at the right time. Use journeys for marketing and sales engagement. So there are actually different tiles in the Journey Builder that you can use in order to automatically create lead or opportunity records, or you can even create task or phone call activity records based on your customer's interaction with your marketing materials within that journey. So these types of records are going to prompt sales users and marketers alike to continue engaging with those customers based off of those records being automatically generated. Okay, so creating journeys with agents. So when users are initially creating their journey, there's going to be an option where you can employ the help of Copilot in order to create your journey. So what Copilot is going to do is going to offer you a few prompts that are in line with kind of what we see as common themes for journeys. So if you see a prompt that fits the use case for your journey, you can select that prompt. But also if you don't see the right prompt for you, it actually allows you to put into your own words exactly what you're looking to accomplish with that journey. Send that off to Copilot and have Copilot sort of interpret that. And if it can, it'll create that journey for you. It might not be perfect every single time, but it definitely gives you a great starting point. And the user can, of course, go ahead and make changes or updates to the journey to finalize their design and make sure it fits exactly what they're looking for. And of course, templates. We can save time with journey templates as well. So in addition to using Copilot to help you design your journey, you can also create journey templates and save them and select them for use. Say your organization has a journey that they send out weekly or monthly, and the overarching design is always the same, but maybe you just need to switch out a segment here or an email there. You can easily just select a journey template to save you the time from recreating the wheel, if you will. All right, custom columns do not copy. So we just want to make sure that everybody knows there's a bit of a gotcha when creating a copy of a journey, that if you are using custom fields in your journey, this could be for additional requirements on triggers that you're using, or when you're using attributes to send customers down different paths. If you are mapping to custom columns and you try to copy that journey, those custom columns and mapping aren't always going to get pulled over into the copy of your journey. So we just want to make sure that if you do create a copy of your journey, you're making a thorough review of that journey and remapping those columns if necessary. All right, learn more with tile analytics. So once a journey is published in Dynamics, every action tile that exists in your journey is going to begin creating those analytics for each individual tile. So in order to review these analytics, you just have to select the tile within the journey and check the analytics tab to review those. Okay.
So for segment ongoing journey reentry, this is a great feature for if you are needing your audiences, if you're using segment-based journeys, to re-enter a campaign if necessary. So I would say out of box, if you don't utilize this feature, once you have met the criteria, even if you flow out and then flow back in, if this is not toggled on, you will not get re-entered into the journey itself. So I would say a use case here is for a client. We've enabled this. They have a survey that goes out every 90 days. And if they're a customer that was originally in the segment and then leaves and then re-enters, they want them to receive that survey request again. And this is what segment reentry does for them. So now pause, now resume.
So if you end up discovering that you set a journey live and you've discovered a mistake in your journey after it's gone live, or maybe your organization is having an issue with their call center, you can actually temporarily pause your journey in order to keep customers from continuing to flow into your journey. And also, if you pause your journey, it's going to hold your customers exactly where they're at in that journey. So you actually have a maximum of 21 days that you can leave a journey on pause. After that, if it's not resumed in that time, it's actually going to move the journey to a stopped status, and you're not going to be able to resume your journey after that. So you definitely want to be mindful of that time frame. But while your journey is paused, users do actually have the ability to make minor edits, I would say, to their journey. So again, if you want to make a change, add a branch here, swap out an email here, but users definitely want to be mindful of the impact of the changes they are making to their customer journey, because if it's too impactful to the actual flow of the customer experience, the system could end up creating an additional version of the journey rather than just resuming the existing version.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so we're gonna switch over and talk a little bit about consent. So you definitely wanna know your hierarchy as it applies to consent in Dynamics. So the consent structure in real time actually consists of a hierarchy, which first includes the compliance profile. And within the compliance profile, you actually have the ability to determine what type of enforcement model that you're going to use for your different purposes. Now, purposes live within the compliance profile. And when we talk about purposes, the three main purposes that come out of the box are commercial, transactional, and tracking purposes. So depending on where your audience may live, again, if you have more of a global audience, and you need to be a little bit more mindful about the type of enforcement model that you are using for consent for your marketing messages, this is where you may want to create different compliance profiles to be used for audiences in different countries or different regions.
Yeah, I would say Microsoft definitely allowed for a lot of flexibility to, I would say, acknowledge that multiple brands, and then clients just have different needs for consent. So.
One more thing. I just want to touch on topics. So topics are used in compliance profiles, and they can be somewhat compared to subscription lists that were found in Outbound. But today in real time, the system uses topics. So again, you could be a bit more topical as far as what type of messages you offer your consumers to consent to receiving or not. So for example, if you want to send out an email with a newsletter topic or an industry update topic, it actually allows your consumers to really tailor what type of messaging they do or do not want to receive through your preference center, rather than them just completely unsubscribing from receiving messages from you altogether. Okay, looking to use form pre-fill, make sure your tracking is set up. So I know Caroline touched on this a little bit previously, but if your organization does want to offer your customers form pre-fill on their website, which again, essentially just makes it a little bit quicker and easier for a customer to submit your form, you're definitely going to want to make sure that you have tracking set up properly in your system. In order for a website to know who a customer is and pull that customer data into the form fields in the first place, it's going to rely pretty heavily on that tracking consent in order to pull that information and auto-populate those forms. So again, it's important to ensure that tracking is set up properly, and also important to ensure that your organization is honoring and respecting the different requirements for tracking consent across countries and across regions.
Yeah.
Dare to double opt-in. Okay, so the double opt-in feature actually lives within the compliance profile. And this feature is essentially going to require that your customer confirms their genuine consent to receiving your marketing messages, not once, but 2 times. So what's going to happen is if they do consent to receiving marketing messages, they're going to receive a follow-up email that's going to ask them to, in fact, confirm that they do want to opt in to receiving those messages. So double opt-in might be required in certain countries or certain regions. So it's definitely important to know where those areas are, where you want to employ double opt-in. And though it could be, or it might sound a bit cumbersome to ask your customers to opt in 2 times into receiving your messages, it could down the line ensure a bit cleaner data as far as consent goes in your system, and eventually result in lower opt-out rates over time.
Yeah. And as Jackie mentioned, it is continuous, so they have to do it every time. That if you're having double opt-in applied to a compliance profile and they're submitting forms, they do have to continuously do the second process of the double opt-in. Okay, so should you use CIJ real-time only consent? So for this one, if you are utilizing the out-of-the-box do not email bulk email and emails fields on the sales side, for the contact and lead, you have the ability to do an additional check whenever your journeys are getting sent out to look at those fields. If you move, what we recommend, if you have the ability to just rely on contact point consent, that is what we recommend, just the journeys and the CIJ looking at that level of consent. Some of our clients, they have sales users that use those out of the box email, do not bulk email fields. And so they have to require that second check. And so you can do that within the features area of the CIJ app. And it does an additional check. What will happen when a journey goes live, it will do an additional check to make sure that they've opted in on those fields as well. To opt in or opt out, those are the only options. So whenever you are submitting your forms, if they have consent on them, a null value is considered either an whatever behavior you have, it can either be an opt-in or an opt-out. So if you are, the checkbox would be to check it, means that you're opting in. If your customers are not checking that box, Microsoft is recognizing that, and they've had a pretty hard stance on this, that is considered an opt-out record. So it's just something to be aware of. If you have consent on your forms, those null values are actually considered opt-out, or I guess the reverse opt-in records, depending on how your behavior is set up. This next one, preference centers are for preferences only. So one thing to note is when you are either building out your consent centers in real time, you only have the ability to update specific purposes or topics. If you want the ability to add specific contact fields that you want your customers to update, that is not functionality that exists within Customer Insights journeys. What you would have to do is essentially have an additional form within your email communications or wherever you're wanting people to update their preferences, and you would have to direct them to that form to update those contact interest fields. So that's just something to be aware of. This was different than how outbound behaves. So it's kind of a gotcha for customers that are moving to real time. So are your consent checks running? So a cool thing that Microsoft does to stay compliant is that once your journey goes live, every additional send time that it has, so if you have a nurture campaign where you're having several emails or text messages go out, it is going to check the customer's consent at each send. So it's a per send. So if I say that I have my consent up and running and I'm opted in, and then I'm in a journey, and then mid-journey I have opted out to receiving communications from your brand, Microsoft is going to acknowledge that, and I will be removed from the journey itself. So it just keeps you compliant. Okay. Now let's get to security.
Always a fun topic. All right, security. So
when it comes to
oh, can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. I might just be lagging. Apologies for that. All right. Number 47, when it comes to CI data, there's only 4 roles. So from top to bottom, the roles that exist for Customer Insights data consist of the admin role, the contributor role, the marketing contributor role, and finally the viewer role. So again, the only roles that exist for CID, and what is important to understand is that these roles today cannot be updated or edited or modified at all. So it's really important to understand that whatever exists in the role today is what the user is going to be getting if they're assigned that user role or that permission. So the most powerful role is, of course, the admin role. You could think of it as a system administrator role that we're all used to today, but elevated. The admin role is going to be automatically assigned to the environment owner, and the environment owner or the admin can essentially do anything that's possible within Customer Insights data, as well as reset the entire environment or even delete the entire environment if they so choose. So again, it's just important to understand these roles and make sure you're assigning them to your users as you see fit. All right, making consent visible to all. So today in Dynamics, users can actually view a customer's consent directly from the contact record, and they can do this by way of the Communications tab on the contact form. So if the Communications tab isn't already exposed for your users to view and check out what consent looks like for an individual customer, there is actually a component that can be added to the contact form that's going to expose that information for users. I think one important thing that we like to mention is that if you do want users outside of marketing users to be able to have insight into consent through this tab, you just want to make sure that you check their security roles just so that they have access to the data once it is exposed.
Okay, this next one is a personal favorite because I've had to deal with these pesky columns. So column level security requires some extra love for sure when it comes and is related to customer insights journeys. There are feature switches. So if you're using column level security and you need to use some of those columns for segmentation or personalization in emails, there is within the feature switches area of the tool, there are toggles where it will allow you to use those column level security fields. For right now, if you're needing to branch off of those specific fields that have that extra level of security within your journeys, or need to use those for your triggers, that does require you to open up a Microsoft support ticket, but we've done it for a few of our clients. It just is a process that you have to go through because they have to enable some things on the back end. So wanted to call that out. And then the last but not least, protect your HTML and your data. So if you are needing to, I would say, have some of your assets where not all of the users should have access to your HTML within your forms or your emails, that unfortunately isn't a specific privilege within Dataverse that you can just add that to a security role. But you can create a record within CIJ that allows you to restrict those for certain users or even teams. So you can restrict it for HTML, or if you're using Litmus within your emails area, you can actually lock down that as well if only certain users should be accessing those credits. So again, just wanted to call that out, that there isn't necessarily a table privilege, but there is a feature within records that you can create to kind of lock down those specific assets so that only certain users have the ability to edit. So those were the 50 tips. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. Before you go, we wanted to showcase some of the new things that are coming to Customer Insights that I would say personally are excited about. Some of the few here that I'm most excited about are email expiration. That's coming in January of this next year. That will allow you to essentially expire emails that are in your journey. So I would say a big use case for that is for your events. Some of your event communications, when you get closer to the event, should be expired. So that is coming. And then the export segments and insights to your ad and tech marketing platforms. That's on the Customer Insights side. So very excited about that. But here is some of the ones, some of the features that are yet to come. But I would say there are a lot more that we didn't add to this slide, but you could look at the release wave planner that Microsoft gives you in its documentation if you want to see the full list. So as always, thank you for hanging out with Jackie and I today. We did want to provide you with a few resources. If you like content like this related to customer insights, or again, just within the customer engagement suite, we have a blog that where we output some of the things like our webinars or blogs that our marketing team pushes out. And then we also have a knowledge hub that gives you a lot of insights like we have shown today to really how to utilize the system and kind of other tips that we have found helpful for users. So again, thank you for hanging out with us today, and we will see you soon, hopefully.
Thanks, everybody.